Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome from Berlin, Germany. My name is Daniel Stecher, IBS Software on behalf of Claire Tate and the entire airline crewing Enigma community. It's a great honor for me to have another guest speaker today who's speaking about crew scheduling and fatigue risk management, Hector Berrocal from COPA Airlines. And why it's a unique presentation, because he just got awarded the best presentation at the Agifos Crew Conference 2023 in Santiago de Chile. So we have a good presentation ahead of us. You can ask all your questions you have in mind. Please use the raise your hand technology from MS Teams, and then I will help Hector and will call in the people who have raised their hand. Hector, stage is yours.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for the timing and basically this space, that it's a great space to share with everyone good practices, good things that we are doing in the airline industry and that affect our day-to-day in crew management. Everyone is seeing my screen, right?
Yes.
Yes.
All good.
Perfect. So the first thing that I would want to share with you and to basically start it, it's to think on August. We are in August 15. Where were you in August 15, 2020? Were you in that moment? If you were thinking that in 2023 we will be in this spot, the airline industry growing in a very good phase, having almost all the capacity except for Asia, I think, all the capacity that we used to have in 2020, early in January, it's up there flying now. And also in some places like Latin America, we are even more than 2020 in January. So we are lucky to be here. We have some new challenges. Things have changed a lot after the pandemic. For instance, we have this space that probably it was available in 2020, but now basically it's a boom. We have this space in Teams, and we have Zoom and all those new technology, for say something, to share those spaces and to share wisdom between us and have this opportunity. So with that in mind, I would like to start my presentation about crew and fatigue risk management. It's very interesting because we, as in COPA, we start to look fatigue risk management within crew management back in 2020. In January, start to develop that part within the area of crew management, and then it comes the pandemic, and everyone's basically start to change some things. But this portion of the functions of the company stay with us. Some companies, some airlines has it in safety, and it's important, as you will see in the presentation, but it's also very interesting from our point of view, how we handle and how we contribute to fatigue risk management. So starting COPA Airlines, it's a public company that trades in the New York Stock Exchange. We have more than 100 active aircraft right now, and we operate more than 340 daily flights. We are more than 7,000 employees, and we are in a top world top performer on time. That's very proud for us. We are very proud of this accomplishment. We have like 7 months in a row that we are the most on-time airline in the world. And we are very proud of that. Our headquarters is in Panama City, and we operate the biggest base for our crew is in Panama, even though we have small base in Bogotá, Colombia, and in Medellin, also in Colombia. Right now, we operate 80 destinations in Americas, in the whole Americas. 81 will be in next couple of months when we start to fly to Barquisimeto in Venezuela. From our side of crew, basically, we have more than 1,400 active pilots right now. We have 2,400 active flight attendants right now, and we operate just one fleet. That it's very important because I understand that some complexity in our crew management situation and crew scheduling. It's linked to our type of fleet. So we operate only Boeing 737. We have all the family of NGs, and we also have MAX. We operate right now more than 9,000 monthly pairings that change, give or take, very few times. And also, it's important. We right now are using the IBS ADAP crew pairing, and that's the way that we are doing it since 2016. Sorry, I think I lose my presentation. Just 1 second, please. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. So with that in mind, crew management has a lot of challenges all every month. Basically, it's related and not necessarily linked to staffing. You know that we have upgrades, we have rotations, we have also training tracking. We have to do some training uh, all all year long. We have constant changes from flight schedule from commercial because we basically we are driven the by commercial part, uh, where to put those flights that make more money, and also because our passengers are demanding those flights in different schedule. Also, of course, we have block hours component. This is important because sometimes in pairing optimizer, when we are doing some combinations of flights, we have this thing that basically in a month you are doing a different amount of block hours, and then that flight that the crew knows that basically you are used to combine those flights in the next month. Basically you lose those combinations, and then the crew is not familiar with those pairings that end up in a constant changes in the pairing solution that any given system gives you. And that's part of the the thinking on the crew, that probably it's only thinking on one flight, and then it's a whole combination that change in the next month. You have a special request for sure that I think everyone is familiar with that. We have a lot of special requests for any given reason from many different areas. And we are basically here to make the day of operation as smooth as we can. In COPA, all the crew management for the day-to-day is also in the same division. So we try very hard to smooth it out the day-to-day in order to present or to guarantee a good operation, or at least that crew management is not an issue in the day-to-day operation. Thinking about from the commercial planning to the day of operation, we have of course the commercial network plan that it's increasing every month, every month it's increasing flights, increasing destination, and all the stuff that you have to take in account in order to generate a good uh, itinerary. Manage the hard rules and soft rules, of course, all the legal part, all the safety net that you required, it's there. Special airports need and safety measures that you are considering in order to have your itinerary accomplished with all the safety that it requires. Monthly solution, bid process, award process that is also in there, and for sure, the fatigue validation. And here it's basically in COPA, we have been working very hard in order to provide to our crews, at least from the planning perspective, a complete, safe, or at least validated in the fatigue software, that we are okay with those combinations and those segments that we are publishing to the crew. So where to start? Back on 2020, we in COPA start to look different fatigue models, and we have to understand the characteristics of each one and understand what are the limits and the tolerance levels. Here, it's important that every country, and here we have a multiple countries represented, has their own rules. And I will say that not necessary flight time limit, it's the only one that covers or try to mitigate fatigue. It's important that we understand all the rules that the authorities has in place in order to do a good assessment over if those safety nets that basically some authority has, it's enough or not in order to operate in a safety matter. I have to say that, for instance, in the Panama rule, we have some constraints that are not common in other countries, but we consider everything as a whole. We review it. We review Panama's rules. We review EASA in Europe. We have been reviewing also the US, and basically working on those three elements in order to facilitate our decisions. It's important to understand the repetitive patterns on fatigue results. Once you have a system, basically understand how that system is giving you some information and understand the outcomes from that system. What are the relationship between a combination, let's say, or type of a combination that it's doing, how much, how many hours it's taking to be out in a good level for those results from the system. And then now that you understand those repetitive patterns, try to measure it and put it as a hard rule in the system, will give you the opportunity to be more flexible in your day-to-day and understand that any changes on those patterns can end up in a difficult situation where you are trying to mitigate those risks. It's important here to understand and value all your pilots reports. Sometimes the human factor for us is and you receive a report and you start saying, this is not okay, or trying to discredit that report. Try very hard to understand it, valuable, put a value on those reports, even though sometimes you say that's not makes any sense. Usually pilots and human beings that take time to make a report, it's because something is happening. So you have to take the credit, of that pilot that takes some time to do that report. So take it very seriously. we start to have a very, very close relationship with safety, of course, the chief pilot office, flight standard, and training. Those are your big providers of information in order to mitigate and do from crew management perspective a better itinerary to your pilots, to your flight attendants that covers most of the areas of the fatigue risk management.
Hector, there's the first question from Brian. Brian, you want to ask the question verbally, or shall I do it for you?
No, I'll go ahead. Yeah, I'm curious to know, because I don't believe it is mandatory in EASA to implement a complex FRMS, but you seem to have quite a complex FRMS in place. Is it mandatory in your regulations to do this, or is this something that the AOC has chosen to do?
No, actually, in Panama, we don't have any mandatory, and I do understand that the EASA doesn't also, and many other air authority doesn't have a mandatory FRMS. The thing is that usually the regulatory says that if you want to extend or you want to take some limits from the regulation, you have to have a FRMS. In Panama, we do not have it, but we implement proactively in safety manner, thinking in our safety and as a core value of the organization, that we need to start thinking on fatigue risk management. Not necessarily the full system that it's audited, that has some other complex thing, but yes, we do implement it.
I definitely agree. It's a great opportunity to build a more collaborative relationship with your crew, I think. I fully agree, and well done.
Yeah, thank you. So as I told you, was a close relationship with those partners and also with your union. It's important that, I don't know if happens to any one of you but we used to have a lot of reports from the union, not necessarily from the pilots. And then when we start to show them some things that we were doing and some rules that we were implementing in our system to the union and agrees with them, all the conversation start to be more fluent and actually proactive. The matter that the union it's involved somehow in those rules that we are putting in the system, give them the confidence that we are doing the right thing. So they start to also talk to the line of pilots, telling them that we are doing something because of you, even though they receive some backlash from them about some different actions. So I will talk about it a little bit later. And for sure, close review of employees' fatigue reports. When you have a fatigue report from flight attendant or pilot, you have to review it, try to understand, and if it's the case, give the opportunity to human factors you have it in the company to clarify what is doing the person, because it's also very personal thing. The fatigue is not related. It's not only related to the work. It's also related to what are you doing in preparation to the work. So when we talk about the work closely with Chief Pilot Office and Flight Standard, it's related basically to special airports. How envision it's the Chief Pilot Office and Flight Standard, how rest they think should be a pilot that is going to a special airport. It's also important that they validate any other crew pairing solution that we are taking. For instance, in our network, there is a lot of noise when you have 4 landing in a day. So it's important for us that those solutions that come from the system, the Chief Pilot Office review it and have an opinion. They have to figure out a separate way understand and to validate it, and in order to have a collaborative result between all of us. The use of deadheading is important also to be in accordance with them about deadheading. It's also takes some fatigue, it moves in a different way, so you have to be with them in those parts. And then close monitor to SPIs. Last 2022, I received I have a conversation with my boss, the vice president. He told me that I have to put in my goals, in my objective of the years, that in my KPIs, the SPIs of the company. And I was like, oh, but I don't influence anything. It's not about me. But I start to be in those meetings and work with them. It was a very good collaborative method in order to, starting with the itinerary, give some mitigations in order to accomplish those SPIs. So at least from that point, we as a whole company, we end up in a better position, mitigated those risks that we have inherited from the flight operations. Keep open doors conversation with unions, be transparent. We do have an NDA signed by the representative of the union that comes to itinerary. They've signed an NDA, so we are more openly have a chat with them about some key things that we required in the itinerary process, and that give them the confidence to be transparent and work hand to hand with us. And of course, get involved in the investigations that came from safety. That gives you some highlights, not necessarily only when safety is investigating and knock your door because they want to check some timing or whatever with you. It's also a good way to have those investigators give you feedback over the whole thing and how you can handle the day-to-day thing.
Hector, there's a question from Fatima. Fatima, you want to
Yes.
ask your question yourself verbally?
Yeah, but you can also read. Thank you.
So she's
I'm just
asking,
interested.
could you please tell what kind of program you use in order to measure the fatigue, alertness level, for example, of flight deck? And they use concert program by Jefferson in Astana. And what kind of program you have to plan for roster, which, for example, they have aims like you at COPA, which is integrated with the concert program from Jefferson. So which kind of system you use at COPA to measure the fatigue level?
Yeah, for fatigue level, we are using the index FATE from Interdynamics, a Canadian company. It's not the state of the art right now, but we are doing it very well. We have learned a lot with them, and we are thinking to go to the next level very soon. And our roster system, we use also AIMS, and basically we are not fully integrated between the two systems, but we have been working very hard in order to have both inputs, at least at the moment that we generate the itineraries from everyone. Yeah, even for flight for the pilots and also flight attendants.
Thank you. What kind of scale they have in order to measure alertness? Like, do you have index, like target level?
The index, it's named FATE, and they give us like a parameter when you are green, you are yellow, or you are red, basically, and how many hours or minutes are you on those brackets, and then you want to move it all to green, let's say. the rest period, or the rest period, the sleepy period is the most important thing there. They validate at what time are you working, at what time, if you are on Workload, if you are not on Workload, in what time you're supposed to be sleeping. And I say suppose because here is when it comes the human factor, no? That sometimes you can be you sleep from 8 in the night, all the night long, you sleep, but you are fatigued at the next day. And when you start doing some question, it's because you didn't sleep well, because you have a baby in the house, you have some other kind of things that it's end up in that you don't sleep well those hours, even though the system is just thinking that you are sleeping. So it's important that you have any system will assume that you will be rest in some periods that actually you will do it. So those are the human factors that it's important to validate when you receive a complaint or a report from the pilot or the flight attendant.
Sorry, thank you. Can I have one last question? So it's interesting for me. Is it possible to put workload on some routes? So, for example, if we have such kind of routes, which is seasonally in high demand, and it's has a very it's specific route with a huge workload, and some of that routes are in comparison with another routes are heavy, and most of our cabin crew and they complains to workload on the board. So, and is it possible to put in your program the workload of the route?
No, right now, no, but I understand that there is a couple of systems, and probably I can share with you in a separate email, some systems that are specifically done in fatigue risk management for flight attendants. Because usually in fatigue, we always talk about pilots, because are the ones that basically have more time in a situation in the aircraft to manage that security situation. But there is a couple of systems that validate exactly flight attendants, that basically you, as you say, the workload, it's different and all the stuff. I understand that some fatigue risk management systems also have some, let's say, gradual, that you can basically do some changes on the workload, and it's basically used for special airports, let's say. In our case, with the limitation of our system right now, we do have some rules. For instance, if you want to go to assign a flight to a special airport, we have a rule that says, okay, you have to start fresh in the base. You have to have at least 30 more or less 13 rest hours previous that flight. So in that matter, you are mitigating any fatigue on those very critical flights. Carlene, I think, has a question there.
Thank
and
you.
Also Raquel.
Hector, thank you. Your COPA Airlines sounds absolutely amazing for what you're doing with this fatigue risk. I'd like to share an example and have two questions for this. Delta had a flight. The crew departed at 11 p.m. at night from their home base. So the crew, how do you become rested before that? I mean, you have a family and you just can't tell your body, okay, today I'm going to sleep because tonight I have to fly. And so they showed up fatigued. They had a medical emergency and diverted. Were on the ground for a couple hours, then pressed on into Atlanta, and both pilots fell asleep on arrival. And the airplane they had already programmed it, intercepted glide slope, flying down on arrival, but they hadn't put the gear down yet. And so the two lower gear warning went off. awoke the first officer. He yelled at the captain gear. Captain stayed sleeping. First officer threw the gear down. The noise of the gear down woke him up, and he grabbed the airplane, took the autopilot off, and just landed it very firmly. Now, Delta's response was a memo came out and said, sleep before your flight, drink coffee, and stand up and talk to stay awake. Now, twofold, because if this were my suggestion, number one, in the middle of the night, if you have a divert, your adrenaline's going to be up, and that's going to further deplete your resources. Does your company have any rules? Because I would have pulled that crew. It was in a base and called out, knowing that they're coming in the middle of the night and this is ongoing. I would have pulled another crew in. That should have been to me, that should be a standard fix. How would your company deal with something like that? Midnight divert? Do you keep the guys after that emergency to keep them going on, or do you pull them and put somebody new in? And you may not be having a base there too. You may not have a surplus of pilots, so that could be a challenge. But
hi, I will say that I don't know the situation, but as you describe it, I think every airline has to look their own situation. But I will say first that the first thing that we used to tell to our pilots that they are the pilots. If you feel that you are not fit to fly, you have to tell them. You have to tell me. And we have a very robust rule that if any pilot call us saying that it's not fit to fly, we as crew management, we don't ask anything. We say, okay, perfect, don't worry, stay there. And it's grounded. And we basically send it to chief pilot office, and he has to start, talking to him, what's happening, and human factors also get involved. But we as crew management, what we can do and we should do is basically put it down. We do have some examples that the diversion, and the pilots say, hey, we are in the limit. And we say, don't worry, I will book you an hotel immediately. And we start to look to recover that operation. But to me right now, and we have talked with the union, and this is basically very, it's music for their ears, that the first one, it's the opinion of the person. The pilot, if it feels that it's not fit to fly, tell me, I'm not fit to fly. Because the systems, everyone, and as you mentioned, the timing and all the stuff, that the system will put you, let's say, not that you are not resting the full day long, but assign a couple of hours, let's say. It's any system will do that, but it's only a system. The opinion, the human factor in fatigue is very critical, and it's the input that we receive basically. So again, from my standpoint is that we in COPA, we have a strong mandate to our crew controllers. That is anything, a flight attendant or pilot says that it's not fit to fly for any given reason, it's not fit to fly, boom, go down, perfect. Don't worry, and we send it to the bosses, and we change the crew immediately.
Okay, and then what do the bosses do? What's COPA's status? Do the pilots get paid if say a pilot calls up and said, hey, I didn't sleep today, my baby was crying all day long, I didn't get rested, I'm not fit to fly. Are the pilots penalized financially? Do they keep their pay, or do they get no pay?
I will have to review that. I don't have on top of my mind. I do understand that those things happen, and the pilot, the chief pilot office define if it's paid or not paid, and that's a conversation between them and human factors. Usually, in those things of fatigue call, let's say, or fit to fly, it get involves the human factor, because again, they need to understand if it's something that we as a company are inducing fatigue, or is something that it's personally inducing fatigue. And to me, as crew management, what my goal is that we are not inducing fatigue in any reason, in the workload, in the hours, in how many rest time it has, how many works has pairings has. That's my, that the core of this. Then, of course, if you are not sleeping well because you have a baby, or if you are not sleeping well because anything, it's something very particular, and then start to, okay, here is your situation, give me feedback. If it's something mine, my system tells me that it's okay, but it's not it's not like God telling me that it's okay. We have to also be aware that something could go wrong.
Yeah, and one more question, and thank you for indulging me. And like Qantas, I have a friend at Qantas, and we've had quite a discussion because pay is an issue. And so, is the company inducing fatigue due to their rules on canceling a flight? And at my airline and most of the U.S. carriers, because of our pilot contract, if the plane breaks or the weather comes in and we can't fly that segment, we are what they call pay protected. And so if the weather looks really bad, the captain will say, hey, that doesn't look good. We're just going to stop right now. But at Qantas, whether it's a mechanical, something might be broken, or whether it's weather that doesn't look good, if the pilot doesn't fly that leg, not fault of their own, then they don't get paid for it. So my thought is, if it kind of looks bad but might be okay, and it's kind of broken but we could probably get away with it, wouldn't that be similar to pilot pushing, that they're going to be more incentivized to carry broken airplanes and fly in bad weather due to financial reasons? They're not going to get paid if they don't do it. And then when they start doing that, I know from my experience, whenever you have adverse conditions or additional stress and you're flying a normal schedule, your fatigue goes way up. So how does your company deal with that?
No, actually, we do not have those things in that way. We basically, the payments, it's related. We have a fixed income, and then the variable is the other portion. But for instance, mechanical and all the stuff is responsible for the company. And then, of course, and I think with COVID, every airline in the world has put in their union agreement that we have some force majeure. And that includes hurricane, we have pandemic, we have all those things that the company doesn't have any control of that, even though even the pilot, it doesn't have any control of it. So it will depend on every airline which way we go. If you ask me, I think all mechanical things are in control of the company.
Okay, thank you.
You raised your hand.
Raquel.
Yeah, thank you. So you mentioned that there is some systems that can manage fatigue rules for cabin crew. Do you actually use different rules for pilots and flight attendants, and hence are the pairings made differently? So for example, Central America, they're not, like round trips. Do you have the cabin crew rotating different from pilot because of these fatigue rules?
Yes, we do. Cabin crew, for instance, special airports, it doesn't matter for cabin crew. So those rules that we have in for pilots in special airports doesn't apply to cabin crew. So yes, in sometimes they are flying together, let's say to Quito, and they are not matching in the comeback because the rotation is different. Or let's say in Armenia or Pereira in Colombia, that it's also special airports, we can rotate it differently because the pairing, you basically want, as I mentioned, a fresh pilot coming out from Panama to the first landing will be those special airports, and it's not necessarily applied to the cabin crew.
Yeah, and this is just a thank you for your reply. For us, pilots and flight attendants, they say that having to do different briefing during the operation because they are rotating differently, that cause some kind of stress and fatigue also. So we try in Avianca to make them rotate the same in most of the times, and then we take the most restrictive, so it will mostly be for pilots for those rotations. Thanks.
Wolfert, you raised your hand.
Thanks. Thank you, Hector, for the nice and open presentation. The question from my side is about, can you explain in short how you use the software? Do you analysis and create new rules for creating your pairings and schedules, or does the system incorporate in any way the fatigue rules automatically?
We want those automatically. We want it. Right now, we don't have it that way. I hope in the next 18 months something will change about it. But right now, it's more than we do all the routes, we do the roster, and then we put it in the system. And that system, the fatigue, tells me, okay, let's say Raquel, it's red in this flight. In this moment, it goes very high, so we remove it. And I will advance in the presentation in order to go that way, because at the end it's a difficult thing for us at crew management, everyone, that you take away a flight from, let's say, Raquel, and take you out of flight because I'm trying to manage the fatigue that I'm provoking to Raquel, but she doesn't feel that way. She beat, we in COPA have bidding process that it's in seniority, and Raquel is number one. So she wants that flight. I want it. It's mine. And so you have to handle those situations because it's security. And then it start a whole new, different process. But I will go back. I promise. I think we have a couple of minutes yet. The question has been great.
Yeah, sorry, one addition. And do you only use it when roster creation or also in the crew tracking phase?
Right now, only in the rostering. We are planning to have in the day-to-day, because at the change, it's the only constant, right? So it will change.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for clarification. Thanks.
Yeah. At least we try to plan the best plan possible. Then things happen and we have to handle it. In the planning side, we have to never, we sometimes forget that location of the hotels is very important. We have a situation, and this is an anecdote, that we have a hotel close to a very noisy stadium, let's say. So all those things are important in order to mitigate fatigue. Workload, as we discussed earlier, the workload start and end of time, the transportation, and probably also it's not special airports, as we have been saying, but also it's a airport where the weather is severe. So we have to take on count those things. We have to take it. At the end,
many questions. The question is, shall we continue with the presentation because some of the questions might be answered later on, or do we want to continue with the questions? So it's up to you, Hector. Silke and Daniel raised her hands. Silke has lowered her hand now. Okay, good.
If you want, let me give a couple of slides more, and we start the questions. Okay?
Yeah. So that's a good idea. So please go on that.
Okay. So first of all, get involved. It's important, all of us as crew management team, that get involved, get informed, get things together in order to understand, be aware of the SPIs of the company, of your flight operations. It's very important. By location, who is flying, who is doing what. Also, run multiple plan, test and get feedback. You need to those people who get involved, the chief pilot office, the standard flight standard training, give you some feedback of all the things that you are doing and you are putting together in order to mitigate those risks. And staffing, vacation, training, it's important. Sometimes we forgot that, or basically stretch a lot of the vacation and all the stuff. Those are important in order to understand how it matters for the crew. The scheduling, well, you know that it's time consuming. We have some manual processes in the early stages, the schedule timeline and all the stuff. As I mentioned, it's very important to us that have, in a way, those pairings removals, be aware that can lead to complaint. You know, if I take a flight, as I mentioned, or a pairing that some pilot it's willing to fly, or a combination that the system is giving me alert, you have to be aware that those pilots more than likely will complain. And it's important to explain it why you are taking away. And in this particular case, it's important to do it with the union. It's very different that the pilot received that feedback only from the company perspective than if the company with the union is telling them, hey, the combination that you wanted, the systems give me an alert, and I'm trying to manage those risks from the company and also because of you. So it's very important. To us has been all the, let's say, difference. Talk to the pilot with the union about those things, even though sometimes the union go first and they say, hey, don't do this because the situation or the system will give you an alert. So to give you some lessons that we learned, communication is a key. Get involved and take seriously the SMS, the AQD, and the fatigue report that you receive. Please read it seriously and evaluate it. Get your stakeholder involved and take the decision together. It's better when the decision is together. Everyone thinks that push those good ideas into the places, and basically the result is better. And actively involve your union, because and I understand that it's not normally when you talk about unions, but the involvement from them and try to that they buy the idea and work together will make your life easier. So thank you very much. And now, yes, please, all the questions that you may have.
Daniel, you raised your hand from Colombia.
Yeah.
Hello, Daniel. Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel. I'm from Colombia. I'm working with the civil aviation, doing aviation rulemaking. And I have a question for you, Hector. Is your company working on any AI tool to predict or detect fatigue inside the flight deck, voice or eye stress, something like this?
No, right now, actually, I think from off-the-shelf systems, there are a lot of system of variety of systems that can give you those predictions. And again, it's prediction in a day-to-day and put things in the head to the pilot. Those are more complicated things right now. So we have been only working with predictive systems and basically take action over what the system is telling us, and also what the pilot is telling me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank
Any
you,
other
Daniel.
question from the audience?
Just to a comment that Raquel is saying, it gets interesting when there's more than one union for pilot and some same for cabin crew, but it's better to have them on board totally. And there are two different things. Again, let's say cabin crew, the onboard cabin crew, they feel that they are second-class citizen if you tell them that the pilots have a different pairing solution because and special airport. So it's important, even though it's difficult conversation, you have to explain it, why a special airport is different for the pilot than the cabin crew. And also, we have a couple of those, and we have to talk. It's different, a whole different story to present to the pilots and then to present to the cabin crew. But we have to do it. We have to talk to them. We have to, even though it's difficult, as you mentioned, we have to do it.
Carlene, you raised your hand. Yes. You're muted.
Let me get that mute off. I did. Yeah, this is about the cabin crew. We have different regulations in our cabin crew too, but I'm telling you, fatigue is fatigue. And we fly a 14-hour flight, and there's 4 of us pilots, but those flight attendants are working. We had a flight, I think, into Hong Kong once. We diverted, got fuel. They were on the crew bus. The flight attendants were talking to scheduling because even their minimal crew rest, they were moving them so they could take the flight back out the next day. We couldn't. I was exhausted. And I'm going to tell you, safety of the passengers is in the back of that cabin. We're the safety of the whole flight, okay? We make sure we land, but if an incident happens, we have to do evacuation. That cabin crew is so valuable. They're the ones that are going to keep your passengers alive. If we can get it on a broken airplane to the ground, they need to get them off the airplane. And I'm just seeing the high levels of fatigue at my airline of the crew. They just run them because they corporate mindset is we're never going to have an accident. We're never going to have an incident, but we do. And you're fortunate to have one type of aircraft, but our flight attendants have to know, they had to know a 777, A350, 330, 320, all the different models of 73, 75, 76. And so they have all these different emergency procedures, and I don't know how they do it. I give those cabin crews so much respect, but I think the companies need to respect them more because they're going to be the ones that save the passengers. Once we get it on the ground, they're going to be the key. And if anyone's read the flight the book Nerves of Steel of the Southwest flight, that captain was phenomenal. One where the engine blew and put a hole in the wing, and that captain did a phenomenal job. But the crew in the back, holy cow, what they were going through. Had they been fatigued, they wouldn't have been able to do what they did. And so I just am 100% support that the cabin crew gets more respect for what they need to do, and as much respect that they need to be rested, equally as much as the pilots do.
Totally. And I will say that I will add to your comment is that first, the culture of the company is key. You have to have a fade away culture to report, to have those, because those reports are key. You need to know that if something is happening, it's something that some pairing that you are putting there is getting putting the cabin crew or the flight crew in a situation. You need to know, even though the system is telling you are all green, but it's not necessary. It's if something is popping up, you have to challenge the system also. So totally agree. In the thing of the cabin crew, of course, for that reason, some companies in that system wide of the fatigue risk management is telling you, this is the system for flight crew, this is the system for cabin crew, because the demand, as you mentioned, Carlene, the demand of work is different. So you have to measure it in a different way, and then you have a different solution for each of them. It's not necessary that the first landing of for a special airport should be the same of the cabin crew, but probably you have to put a cap of how many landings they require to fly. So yes, it's something that we in COPA we take very seriously, and as I mentioned, we measure both cabin right now with the same system, and then we basically validated previous the publication of the itineraries for both crews. I think there is another hand raised.
Aaron, you raised your hand.
Hi, everyone. Hector. Two thoughts or two questions from my end. What would your advice be if you're in an environment where fatigue is not taken serious on the basis that crew calling in sick is punitive, and as a result, they're using fatigue as an option because it's not questionable to get by the system, all right? And I'm speaking from a low-cost perspective. And two, as you suggest just now on restricting total landings, now we're aware that low-cost carriers push utilization. How would you approach having set targets for crew utilization, as in the case with the FAA, which is similar to the FAA, where there's no limitation on monthly crew hours?
Well, it's a very interesting question. I would say that facts are facts. So in the FAA, you have a lot of statistics related to fatigue and incidents, accidents that you can pull out and try to influence those cultures. And the culture will change if the top management change the view of those things. So FAA has a lot of statistics related to incidents and accidents that are influenced by fatigue. So I will suggest you to start there. Try to pull out those statistics that you in the US have. Start understanding, digging in it, and show it that it's something that it's there. It's not that you are thinking out loud about fatigue. Is something that it's there, and also it's science proven. So start to wrap it up facts. Again, there is a lot of science, statistics, science facts that you can share with them in order to talk about more seriously about fatigue.
Hector, when I say it's not taken seriously, I'm not referring from a management perspective, but from a crew perspective. And as you're aware, if a crew knows that calling in sick, I'm going to lose a day pay, whereas if I call fatigue, as the Arabs would say, khalas, it's a way to get around the system. I don't need to send a medical certificate, and I still gain my day's pay. So from that perspective, and we have looked at it internally, where we've seen that the number of fatigue reports to crew control versus the number of fatigue reports to the safety team and the SMS, there's a vast difference in reporting. So we know for a fact that it is not really fatigue, but you cannot prove it unless you have substantial training, or you have implement proper education towards the line. And I'm speaking from the basis that I work in an airline where there is a lot of young crew members, persons that have probably had the first job in their life, teenagers, and just want to get by and attend a social activity, or have some plans in the afternoon where they need to attend an extra 2 sectors. They would report fatigue for it. So this is the angle that I'm looking at this as.
As you mentioned, education is key. And I will say that if you have that situation of a lot of crew control reports of fatigue that is not matching with safety, you need to safety come to you and work together with those reports, because at the end, when safety get involved and start talking, hey, you report fatigue, tell me what's going on, it's different than only stays in control. For instance, in COPA, we, as I mentioned, we can receive a call for fatigue, but immediately that call goes to their bosses, the chief pilot office, and they have their own process very seriously about that report. And we, as crew management, we can receive a report that comes, that say, hey, you induce that fatigue because of this whatever pairing that you make, and probably or not, but it's important to get involved safety in those things, and they be your partner in order to educate the line. That would be my suggestion.
Okay.
Hector,
Thank you very much, everyone.
This was a fantastic presentation. I think now everybody knows why you won the award Best Presentation in Santiago de Chile at the Agiforce conference. I'm glad that we have it now on record, because now we can share it with the community. I think also from the amount of questions, it's somehow a good feedback how great it was. You can also see this in the chat news. Everybody is really blown away. Thank you very much for that. Also, thank you very much for the very active audience this time. I would say that was one of the most active audience ever. So now the bar is very high for all the future upcoming presenters. Interestingly, we have also now a line up till December, January next year already. So plenty of other airline presentations in the upcoming months. Very grateful that now the community is getting more and more active. Thank you very much, everybody. Please stay healthy and safe, and looking forward to having you in the upcoming months with the Airline Crewing Enigma. Thank you, and stay healthy and safe, please.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Ciao.